and government workers. This leads to a lot of busy stay-at-home moms. As your kids grow older and get involved in sports like swimming, soccer, and basketball, you end up spending a lot of time with the parents of their teammates. Over time, you become friends because of all that time spent together. That's what happened to me. When you're at all-day swim meets and soccer tournaments, you really see how these families live and how their relationships work. One of my youngest daughter's best friends was a girl who played soccer. Her mother, Michelle, and her husband, Tom, didn't get along at all. They were always arguing, even in front of others. Tom was a surgeon, and Michelle didn't have a job. He didn't come to many weekday events, but he made an effort to be at most weekend games. Michelle was very attractive, with strawberry blonde hair and blue eyes. When she and Tom were together, it was often uncomfortable because of their fighting. Another soccer mom, Rachel, had a similar situation. Her husband, Eric, was a high-ranking government official who traveled a lot. They didn't fight openly, but they hardly spoke to each other. When he did attend events, he was loud and often seemed a bit too relaxed. Rachel looked embarrassed to be around him, showing her discomfort whenever he spoke. Rachel was cute in a different way than Michelle. She had a lovely figure, shorter than Michelle, with a bit more to her shape. I spent a lot of time with both women and other soccer moms and dads. Our kids were friends, and we spent summers swimming and fall with soccer. The kids often had play dates and sleepovers at each other's homes. I was probably the oldest parent in our small group of friends at 48, while Michelle and Rachel were both in their early 40s. One Friday evening in early fall, when Michelle's child was at my house, I invited her to come over early for a drink instead of just arriving at pickup time. This was not unusual. We often enjoyed drinks while the kids played. She agreed, and we settled into the loft area of my townhouse with a cozy fire and some wine. Over the last few years, we had become quite close, and I considered her one of my best friends. She asked me about my love life, always curious about what was happening with me. She had a carefree way of talking, and I felt comfortable sharing some details with her, though I kept a few things to myself. "You dating anyone these days, or just messing around?" she asked with a cheerful laugh. Michelle was one of the few who knew about my recent relationship with Dana, who had a baby a few months ago. After the baby came, things ended, and I usually kept my short-term flings to myself. I didn't want her to think badly of me. With a small smile, I replied, "Nope, I'm done with all that. I'm waiting for you to sort things out with your husband." She laughed, but then looked serious and said, "If only it were that easy. I feel a bit stuck." I understood. She didn't work and hadn't finished college, so I knew what she meant. She continued, "I have a husband and 3 kids, but sometimes I feel really lonely." I replied, "That's too bad, Michelle, because I enjoy spending time with you. You're my best friend, and you are really great to talk to. Plus, you're the most beautiful person I know." She stood up and leaned over the railing to check on the kids. They were downstairs playing video games and didn't need her attention. Then she came back to me, sat sideways on my lap, wrapped her arms around my neck, and said softly, "You're nice and charming." We shared a sweet kiss for a moment, but when my hands began to wander, she pulled back and I admitted, "I really want to be close to you." She replied, "I feel the same way. I wish we could be together right now." Michelle took a moment to gather herself and said, "Tom is in surgery every Tuesday. Are you free on Tuesday mornings?" "Of course," I answered. "What are you thinking?" "What do you think I'm thinking?" she said playfully. "I'm thinking I can come over every Tuesday morning." I cautioned her, "Are you sure about this? It could be risky if anyone finds out." She reassured me, "You have a garage, right? Plus, this neighborhood is quiet. Not many people drive through. I don't know anyone around here. I can just park in your garage. Tom is gone all day, so we won't have to worry." "And what about our friendship?" I asked. "What if things get awkward for our kids?" She thought for a moment, then said, "I won't feel jealous if you want to date someone else. If it doesn't feel right, we'll know. If I ever feel guilty, we'll stop. But we have to protect the friendship for the kids. It's a risk, but we can handle it." I raised my glass in a toast and said, "Until Tuesday, then," and we clinked glasses, both smiling. She picked up her child and went home for the night. I was really looking forward to it. Saturday brought 2 soccer games, and all the parents gathered during the break between the games. Michelle and I mostly stayed away from each other, trying not to raise any suspicions. even though we weren't really guilty of anything serious. So I ended up chatting a lot with Rachel. Even without makeup, she looked nice that Saturday morning. I asked about Eric, her husband, and she sighed. Oh, he couldn't get out of bed for the first game. He had too much to drink last night. Then he had to go downtown for a big meeting. She wasn't happy with him. That was clear. We kept talking, and I learned that he traveled every Thursday and Friday, spending the night about 3 hours away at his office in the state capitol. And honestly, he didn't help much at home anyway. He wasn't around to support her or the kids and didn't know how to fix things or take care of the yard. He seemed to only be useful for the money he brought in. She then asked if I could help her out after the game. She wanted to store her kayak up in the garage and get some other things down, but everything was too heavy for her to manage alone without Eric there. I gladly agreed to help. After the second game, my kids went home with my ex, and I went to Rachel's house, which was just a few blocks away from mine. It was a nice home with a 3-car garage, a pool, and a big porch. It was no surprise she hadn't left him. Rachel hadn't worked in years, but she had a good degree and could support herself if needed, although she hadn't been in the workforce for 15 years, thanks to Eric. I quickly took care of the kayak and a few other things she needed help with. Afterward, we went inside and talked while she prepared lunch for her kids. She even made me a grilled cheese sandwich, which was really tasty. As I was about to leave, I thought, why not ask? I said, "Is there anything else around here that could use some help?" Her expression changed slightly as she considered what I might mean. She replied, "Oh, there are plenty of things around here needing attention." As I walked to the garage door to leave, I said, "Sorry to hear that. Let me know if I can assist you with anything else." She walked with me to the garage, shut the door, and turned to face me, then kissed me. We kissed for a moment, and then she said, "You can help me out, will you? Please?" How could I say no to that? I replied, "Rachel, I'd help you with anything after a kiss like that. But what do you need?" She said, "I need some support. Eric is often drinking, and even when he isn't, I don't feel any connection anymore." "I just need some real attention," Rachel said with a serious look. I responded, "Rachel, I understand. If you ever need a place to relax or talk, you can come by. Just park your car in my garage and we can have some time together." "What are you thinking?" After a moment of thought, she replied, "How about this Friday? Eric's usually gone and the kids are at school by 8. I can drop them off and come over. I've got a personal training session at 11, so that gives us a couple of hours." So within a day, I found myself planning to spend time with 2 close friends. These were women I had known for years, and I couldn't help but hope this would be something special. Michelle arrived the following Tuesday around 9 a.m. I had parked my car outside, leaving space in the garage for her to pull in and close the door. I was just finishing a work call in my office when she walked in, dressed casually in sweatpants and a loose sweatshirt. I thought to myself, even when she's not trying, she still looks amazing. But I had imagined she'd dress up a little more for this. As if reading my mind, she removed her sweatshirt, revealing a delicate lace top underneath. She smiled warmly and moved toward me. I motioned for her to wait a minute since I was still on a call. She smiled again, clearly amused, and leaned down to give me a gentle kiss. The rest of the morning passed in a calm and comfortable way as we enjoyed each other's company. I could feel the connection growing between us, as if years of knowing each other were leading up to this moment of closeness. As I've gotten older, I've noticed something interesting about relationships. Many women in their 40s seem to find a new sense of confidence. After years spent focused on love, family, and raising kids, they start to feel like they've missed out on something for themselves. It's as if they're reclaiming a part of themselves, seeking out the joy and excitement they feel they've been missing. Some people get divorced and quickly find someone new, while others stay in their marriages but look for comfort elsewhere. In either case, people like me sometimes end up being a part of their lives during those moments of change. Michelle was someone who fit this pattern, and I was the one she turned to. As we spent time together, there was a growing connection between us. Once my call ended, I focused entirely on the moment, both of us enjoying the closeness we hadn't shared before. At one point, she smiled softly and said, "Come closer." That was all I needed to hear. We embraced, and the connection between us deepened as we shared an intimate moment. Afterward, Michelle looked calm and content, her smile reflecting her satisfaction. "Wow," she said with a grin as she leaned back. "That was something else." I smiled back and gently pulled her close for a kiss. It seemed to catch her off guard, but she quickly responded, and we shared a long, passionate moment together. The atmosphere was warm and comfortable, like two people rediscovering something they'd lost. As we kissed, I could feel the energy between us building. I gently touched her, and it was clear she felt the same way. She leaned back and I admired her beauty, the moment feeling more special because of how natural everything seemed. Her smile never faded as we continued, both of us savoring the connection we had longed for. Michelle, S bright personality and unique charm made the experience unforgettable. We spent more time together simply enjoying each other's company, and by the end it was clear that this was more than just a casual encounter. It was a deep and meaningful moment between two people who had found comfort and connection. "I even made sure everything was just right for you," she said with a smile. I smiled back, grateful for the attention she had given to every detail. It was a time of genuine appreciation and shared closeness, and we both understood that this connection was special. As the day went on, we continued to enjoy the moment, both of us thankful for the bond we had formed. It was a day neither of us would forget anytime soon. She grabbed my arm and pulled me closer. "Now don't hold back," she said firmly. I moved toward her, and we connected in a way that felt seamless, like everything had been leading up to this moment. "Yes, this feels right," she said, her voice full of excitement. She wrapped her legs around me, encouraging me forward. There was nothing slow or gentle about it. We adjusted positions a few times to find what felt most comfortable for both of us. At one point, she shifted slightly, which brought a new and unexpected feeling, and we both enjoyed it. After a while, we settled back into a more familiar position. Michelle reached down and smiled at me, giving a clear signal that she was ready for more. Knowing she trusted me, I felt confident and connected with her even deeper. Soon after, we both felt the intensity build to a peak, and the shared moment left us both exhausted but satisfied. I lay next to her, catching my breath as she smiled. We both laughed and gave each other a playful high five, happy with how everything had gone. "Wow," she said, catching her breath. "I haven't felt this good in a long time. Tuesdays might just become my new favorite day." I smiled and agreed, feeling relaxed after such a special time together. We put on our comfortable clothes again, and I made us both some coffee. We sat in the loft, talking and enjoying the easy conversation like old friends. It felt natural, and I was relieved that there was no awkwardness between us. Our connection felt real, and we spoke about everything just as easily as before. After a while, I asked, "So, what did you mean earlier when you said, 'I knew it'?" She laughed and explained, "Rachel and I got together last weekend for drinks, and we started talking about people we know. She asked me, 'If you could be with anyone, who would it be?' And I said your name. She asked why, and I told her that I thought you were attractive and probably a really great person to spend time with. And when I saw you today, I thought, I was right." I found it interesting and couldn't help but think about Rachel more. There seemed to be more to her story. I said, "I like Rachel, though I don't know her as well as I know you. Her husband seems a bit distant." "Yeah," Michelle agreed. "He is. Rachel even told me he's seeing someone in Richmond. She knows about it, but doesn't really mind. They haven't been close in years. And guess what? She told me they've never been really open with each other. He thinks certain things are inappropriate. Can you believe that?" I raised my eyebrows in surprise. "Really? That's hard to imagine. They've never shared that kind of closeness?" "That's what she told me," Michelle confirmed. "She hasn't experienced anything like that since college," Michelle said, referring to Rachel's exact words. "I couldn't believe what I was hearing," Michelle joked. "I should send her over here. If I did, she might not want to leave." I had to look away, trying to hide the fact that Rachel had already planned to come by in a few days. With the new information I had, I imagined the time together would be even more interesting. Michelle interrupted my thoughts and said, "Not to change the subject, but I know you're a single guy and probably seeing other women. I don't expect to be the only one. Tom and I get together about once a month, so just make sure anyone you're with is healthy. We don't want any surprises. Of course, I replied. I'm not seeing anyone else at the moment, but I would ask that if you and Tom do spend time together, let's give it a few days before we meet again, just to avoid any, well, lingering traces. She laughed. Ha ha, I get it. No need for awkwardness. If Tom and I do, it's usually on a Friday night, so that's enough time before Tuesday. But honestly, it's pretty rare. I smiled and said, that works for me. We continued chatting and laughing, feeling relaxed in each other's company. The conversation felt easy, and the day went by as we shared stories and moments together. We talked about the past, shared a few inside jokes, and spent the rest of the time enjoying each other's company without any tension. Michelle finally relaxed on top of me, her breathing heavy and uneven. After a minute, she asked, "Did you finish?" I shook my head and quietly said, "No." "Well," she continued with a smile, "if you want to, you're going to have to do the work. I'm exhausted after 6 times. I laughed and gently rolled her over so she was lying on her stomach on the floor of the loft. She was completely worn out, resting quietly as I stayed close to her, enjoying the quiet moment. We stayed there for a few minutes, both of us catching our breath. Eventually, I moved next to her, and we shared some light conversation, relaxing and taking in the moment. Michelle remained still, clearly drained from the morning's events, but content. We spent some time together like that before she finally sat up, checking her watch. She smiled at me and said, "I'd love to stay longer, but I've got some things I need to take care of at home. This was a great morning. Same time next week?" "Definitely. Have a great day," I replied. 3 days later, Rachel arrived at my place at 8:30 a.m. To give you a bit more context, I didn't know Rachel nearly as well as I knew Michelle. Rachel and I had only met about a year earlier, whereas Michelle and I had known each other for around 4 years. Michelle and I had a strong bond, with similar senses of humor and personalities, which made us close friends. Their backgrounds were quite different too. Michelle had a more humble upbringing, left a lower-ranked state college after partying too much, and eventually married a doctor. Rachel, on the other hand, came from a more affluent background. She attended an elite private high school, went to an Ivy League college, and married into a well-known political family. But in the end, no matter where people come from, they often end up looking for similar things in life. With Michelle, things were always more direct and straightforward. We understood each other well, and things between us just flowed naturally. With Rachel, I expected things to go more slowly. It felt like the beginning of something different, almost like a casual date, where we would take our time and get to know each other better. The fact that she even showed up was a good sign, but I wondered if she would go through with it once things got serious. I let her in, and we hugged. She smiled, but I could tell she was a little nervous. We sat in the kitchen, and I offered her some coffee. She asked, "Do you have any champagne? I'm feeling a bit anxious." "Sure," I replied. "How about a mimosa?" "That's perfect," she said, so I poured us both a drink. We sipped and chatted about the usual things, kids, soccer, and life. "Did you take the day off?" she asked. "Not exactly," I said. "I work from home some days, and I stayed up late to finish my tasks, so I'm mostly caught up. I'll probably work a bit more later." She finished her drink and then, with a smile, picked up the champagne bottle. "Can we go to your bedroom?" she asked. It seemed like the conversation was over and things were moving forward. "Right this way," I said. We went to my room and she set the bottle down on the nightstand. We started kissing, gradually helping each other out of our clothes. She was wearing capri jeans and a light sweater. The sweater came off first, and I could see she wasn't wearing a bra. We continued undressing, helping each other out of our jeans, and finally finishing the rest ourselves. We moved to the bed and shared a quiet, intimate moment together, both enjoying the closeness. The atmosphere was warm and calm, and there was no rush. Everything felt natural. Afterward, she smiled and said, "Wow, I really needed that." "I could tell," I replied, smiling back. She looked a bit thoughtful, so I asked, "Are you okay?" "Oh yeah, I'm fine," she said, nodding. "It's just that this is different, something I'm not used to. It's been a while since I felt this way." I reassured her, and we shared another quiet moment, both of us feeling comfortable with each other. There was a sense of contentment in the air, and we stayed close, just enjoying the peaceful time together. She smiled again, and we continued talking and laughing for a while, appreciating the ease of our conversation. It was clear that the connection we shared went beyond words, and it made the day feel even more special. Rachel leaned back, taking a deep breath, her face showing a quiet moment of release. She collapsed on top of me, and we both laid still for a bit, catching our breath. After a while, I kissed her neck softly and gently ran my hand over her back, offering a comforting touch. Once she had recovered a bit, I playfully asked, "You like it when things are intense, don't you?" She smiled and replied, "Oh, I love it." "I can make it even better," I said with a grin as I gently helped her turn over onto her back. We shared a light moment, the connection between us deepening. Her smile remained as I moved closer, and she whispered, "Yes, let's continue. I need this." I leaned in, making sure we were both comfortable and close. The intensity between us built up again, but this time it was slower, more focused. Her eyes widened with excitement, and I could tell she was enjoying every moment. We shared a quiet, meaningful experience, with no words needed to explain what we both felt. We continued like this for a while, both of us fully immersed in the moment, enjoying the closeness and warmth of being together. Eventually, the feeling reached its peak, and I whispered, "I'm close." Her eyes widened slightly, and she nodded, understanding what I meant. We shared a few final moments of closeness before everything finally settled, leaving us both feeling calm and content. She pulled me down for a kiss, and we rested together, both of us feeling peaceful after the experience. After a few quiet minutes, I rolled over to catch my breath, and she did the same. We exchanged smiles, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere. "That was incredible," I said. She laughed softly, teasing, "I told you I needed that." "Always happy to help," I joked with a light chuckle. We shared a few more moments of conversation and playful banter. I mentioned how we hadn't even taken our time to relax and ease into it earlier. She smiled again, a little apologetic but still happy. "I just really needed that, but we can take our time now," she said, reaching out to hold my hand. We stayed close, enjoying the moment and feeling connected, talking quietly as we enjoyed the peacefulness of the room. There was no rush, just a calm sense of being together, making the day feel all the more special. I laid back and watched as she enjoyed herself, playfully interacting with me. There was a light-hearted energy between us, and as time passed, the moment became more focused and serious. After a while, I could feel myself reaching a peak, and I gave her a gentle warning. "I'm getting close if you don't stop," I said. But she didn't slow down. I finally couldn't hold back any longer and let out a groan as the feeling overtook me. She handled it gracefully, and when it was over, she gave me a smile, clearly pleased with the moment we had shared. She moved up next to me, slipping under the covers. With a light kiss on the cheek, she grabbed the champagne bottle nearby, took a sip, and looked at me with a grin. "No offense," she said, taking another sip. I laughed and replied, "None taken." She smiled again and added, "It's been a long time since I've felt like this. Honestly, it's been 20 years since I've experienced anything like today. I was worried I'd forgotten how to enjoy myself like this." We both laughed a little, and I was curious about her story. "Wow, 20 years? What happened?" I asked. She explained, "Ed, my husband, doesn't like much of that kind of thing, either giving or receiving. The last time I really felt free like this was back in college. After we got together, that part of life just kind of disappeared." I was surprised. "That sounds tough. If you don't mind me asking, why stay in a relationship like that? You seem like someone who enjoys being close to others." She sighed and said, "It's a long story. I got pregnant shortly after we started dating, and both our families pushed us to get married. We had to make things work quickly. Sadly, I lost the baby, but by then, we were already married." "I'm really sorry to hear that," I said softly. "It must have been hard to feel stuck in that situation." She nodded. "It was tough, but we didn't feel like we had much choice. Divorce wasn't really an option. Our families would never have accepted it. Maybe once the kids are older, I'll think about leaving, but for now, I'm staying." We sat quietly for a few moments before I added, "Well, today was a nice break for you then." She smiled and replied, "Definitely. And there's still more to look forward to next time, right? I was thinking we could make this a regular thing, maybe every Friday, just like today." "That sounds good to me," I said. "Why wait?" I asked, as I gently pulled the covers off her dot. She gave me a curious look and said, "You're really going to stay close after everything?" "Of course," I replied. "We're sharing this moment, so why not?" She smiled and said, "You keep surprising me." As I got closer, I could see the lasting effects of our earlier time together. I knew she hadn't experienced something like this in years, and I wanted to make sure she felt special. We shared a tender moment, and I made sure she felt cared for and appreciated. She responded warmly, and I could tell she was enjoying every second. After some time, she playfully pushed me away, laughing and catching her breath. "Come here and kiss me," she said with a smile, and I happily complied. She smiled again and said, "That was incredible." "I'm glad you enjoyed it," I replied, noticing how relaxed and happy she seemed. She glanced down and raised an eyebrow. "Really? You're ready again already?" "What can I say? You've got quite an effect on me," I said with a chuckle. I moved beside her and we continued to enjoy each other's company. The moment was quiet and peaceful, both of us simply enjoying being together. She laughed and said, "You're going to wear me out, but I'm not complaining." I couldn't help but smile as we spent more time together. She looked over at me and said, "This is exactly what I needed." Eventually, I could feel the moment coming to an end, and we both lay side by side, breathing deeply. She turned to me, smiled, and said, "Thank goodness for Fridays." We shared a laugh before she checked the time and exclaimed, "Oh no, I'm going to be late." She quickly got ready, jumped in the shower, dressed, and kissed me goodbye before heading out the door. "See you next week," she called over her shoulder as she left. Saturday's soccer game was interesting. Watching Rachel and Michelle chatting on the sidelines was something. They both seemed lighter, like they had a new sense of energy. I wondered if they had shared any secrets, but I wasn't too worried. Both of them were married, and it wasn't like either could expect exclusivity from me. They were friends, but not close enough to share everything, so I doubted they'd mention anything about their private lives. For now, everything seemed fine. I chatted briefly with both of them, as I usually would, and everything seemed normal. Soccer Moms Week 2. On Tuesday morning, Michelle returned. She had texted me the night before, asking if 8 a.m. was a good time since she would drop the kids off and come straight over. My kids were with Caitlin, so I told her that was fine. I decided to take a different approach this time, showing a more assertive side. I had a feeling that Michelle, like many strong and independent women, might appreciate a change from always being in control. It seemed like the right time to see how she'd react. She called out, "Hey, I'm here," as she entered the house. "In the bedroom," I replied. She entered the room and found me still in my gym shorts, a bit sweaty from an early morning workout. "I told you I'd be early. Weren't you expecting me?" she asked, a little concerned. "Oh, I definitely was," I said. I walked over to her, skipping the usual greetings. I wanted to keep things straightforward and direct. She seemed to understand that this was going to be different, and she was ready for it. From there, we spent the morning together, enjoying each other's company in a more intense and focused way. The dynamic between us had shifted slightly, but it was clear she was comfortable with the change. Afterward, we both sat and talked for a while, sharing stories about our week and laughing about the little things in life. The moment felt lighter and more relaxed after the initial intensity. She smiled, clearly happy with how things had gone. Once we had finished talking, she gathered her things, ready to head out for the day. "See you next week?" she asked with a grin. "Same time," I replied with a smile. I walked over to her and gently rubbed her back for a minute, giving her a sense of comfort. Without warning, I playfully tapped her on the shoulder. She gasped in surprise, and I gave her another light tap, causing her to laugh. "Quiet down," I joked. "Now tell me, does your husband take care of you like this?" "No," she replied with a smile. I knelt down and gave her a moment of attention, making sure she felt cared for. We spent the next few minutes enjoying the closeness between us, the connection deepening as I made sure she felt appreciated and understood. She sighed in contentment as we shared the moment together. Eventually, I stood up and helped her get comfortable on the bed, making sure she was relaxed. I whispered, "You take over." encouraging her to lead for a while. She moved gently, finding a rhythm that suited her, and we continued, both of us fully enjoying the experience. I stayed close, guiding her through each step, making sure everything was comfortable for her. We shared a few playful laughs as we went along, enjoying each other's company. After a while, I pulled her close again, holding her gently as we both relaxed. The moment came to a natural close, and we lay there together, catching our breath. "You okay?" I asked, concerned about how she was feeling. She turned toward me with a playful smile and gave me a light smack on the chest. "What was that all about?" she teased. I laughed. "Don't tell me you didn't enjoy it." "Oh, I did," she admitted, smiling. "It was a little unexpected, though, kind of like a fun surprise." "Yeah, I know you well enough," I replied, "and I figured you wouldn't mind a little change, and I guess I was right. Besides, surprises are part of the fun, aren't they?" "True enough," she agreed. "Maybe we can add that in every now and then. It was kind of exciting." "Done and done," I said with a grin. "Want a coffee or anything? I'm going to hop in the shower." "Sure," she replied, getting comfortable in my bed. I flicked on the TV and handed her the remote, then headed to the bathroom for a quick shower. A few minutes later, I stepped out with just a towel wrapped around my waist. Michelle was still lounging in bed, the covers pulled up around her. She seemed relaxed and content as she watched TV, looking completely at ease. I climbed into bed, pulling the covers up as I settled next to her. She was watching a light talk show, and it felt nice to have some non-romantic company. We sat quietly for about half an hour, occasionally laughing at something on the show or making small comments about what was being discussed. After a while, Michelle reached over and gently began rubbing my leg. We were both relaxed, enjoying the quiet time together. As we sat there, she smiled, clearly feeling comfortable and happy. We continued talking and laughing, the moment feeling peaceful and natural. Michelle leaned closer and whispered playfully in my ear, telling me how much she enjoyed our time together. Her words were lighthearted, and we shared a smile. The connection between us felt easy, without any pressure. Michelle shifted, sitting up a bit and glancing at herself in the mirror on the side of the room. "We look good together," she said with a grin, watching the reflection. It was clear she felt confident and at ease. We spent a little more time together, simply enjoying each other's company. Afterward, Michelle got up, slowly gathering her things and getting dressed as I stayed in bed watching her. She gave me a warm goodbye kiss before heading to the door. "Can't wait to see what next Tuesday brings," she said with a smile as she left. 3 days later, Rachel returned, looking fantastic in a pair of form-fitting sweatpants. She seemed in high spirits, and I could tell she was looking forward to spending time together again. I was in the kitchen just like the first time when she walked up and greeted me with a kiss. "I've been looking forward to this all week. Let's go," she said, pulling me eagerly toward the bedroom. There was no need for small talk or drinks this time. We both quickly got comfortable, ready to enjoy the moment together. She moved with excitement and energy, clearly anticipating our time together. As we shared a close and intimate moment, her happiness and enthusiasm were evident. The connection between us was strong, and she was clearly enjoying herself. Afterward, as we lay together catching our breath, I whispered to her, "I want to make you feel even more special." She smiled and agreed, moving closer as we enjoyed each other's presence. The bond between us was growing stronger with every passing moment. We spent time exploring each other's company in a relaxed, comfortable way. She was full of energy, moving and shifting as we continued to share the experience. We laughed, exchanged smiles, and enjoyed the simple pleasure of being together. Eventually, she lay back, clearly feeling the effects of the fun we had. I decided it was time for me to take over a little, guiding her gently into a more restful position. Her hair was damp with sweat and her breathing was heavy, but she had a contented smile on her face. I leaned in close, moving slowly and carefully, making sure she was comfortable and relaxed. As I gently continued, she whispered, "I'm feeling really sensitive right now." I made sure to move slowly, being mindful of her comfort. We continued like this for a while, both of us savoring the connection we had built together. For the moment, I was happy to take things slow, focusing on a tender and relaxed experience. I sat back and looked down at the connection we shared, enjoying the moment. She adjusted her position, resting her feet against my chest, and I took the opportunity to gently touch her, keeping the mood calm and comfortable. Though I picked up the pace slightly, it was nothing like the intensity of our last time together. Everything felt just right, and the peaceful atmosphere between us made it even better. As we shared the moment, I asked softly, "Is this what you want?" "Yes," she replied with a smile. "This is perfect." We continued like this, the rhythm natural and easy, both of us fully immersed in the experience. Eventually, the moment reached its peak, and we stayed close, quietly enjoying the warmth and closeness. Afterward, we lay together, catching our breath and enjoying the calm. A few minutes passed before Rachel whispered, "Come closer for a minute." I moved next to her, and she gave me a playful smile, showing how happy and relaxed she felt. We laughed and talked for a bit, just enjoying each other's company. As we chatted, she looked over at me with a grin and said, "You know, you seem to enjoy spending time together in different ways. Last week and again today, you were playful and really made me feel good." I smiled and replied, "I'm glad you're comfortable with it. It's all about having fun together, but it's never something you have to do unless you enjoy it." She laughed softly and said, "Well, I never realized how much I liked it until now. It's new for me, but I really enjoy the connection." We continued talking, sharing thoughts and experiences. At one point, she asked curiously, "Are there things you're interested in that we haven't tried?" I thought for a moment and replied, "I've experienced different things over time, but it's always about making sure both people are comfortable. It's not about trying everything. It's about finding what works for us." She smiled, appreciating the openness of our conversation. "That's good to hear," she said. "It's nice to feel like there's no pressure. We can just go with what feels right." We exchanged a playful pinky handshake, laughing at how simple yet meaningful the moment felt. She then mentioned something about her friend Michelle and shared a bit about their conversations. It seemed like Michelle was going through her own challenges, which Rachel found both surprising and relatable. As we talked, Rachel gently touched my arm, and we continued enjoying each other's company. The relaxed atmosphere between us was a perfect end to the morning. I asked her to kneel on her hands and knees facing the mirror. As we shared the moment, we both looked at each other in the reflection. "You like mirrors, don't you?" she asked with a smile as we moved together slowly. "Definitely," I replied. "I like seeing everything. It adds something special." Rachel continued, "Last week was the first time I ever saw myself like this in a mirror. It's interesting. Thanks for helping me explore new things. Getting married young didn't leave much room for these kinds of experiences." I felt for her. From the outside, her life seemed perfect, but it was clear she had been missing something important. In that moment, I felt like I was helping her find a piece of that fulfillment, and it eased any lingering guilt I might have had. The conversation faded, replaced by shared breaths and the sounds of our connection. As the pace picked up, we became more focused, both of us fully absorbed in the experience. Rachel had shoulder-length hair, not long enough for a full ponytail, but still enough for me to gently hold. As we continued, I wrapped my fingers around her hair and gave a light tug, just enough to get her attention. She responded immediately, her voice filled with excitement. "Oh my God, that's perfect!" she exclaimed. Encouraged by her reaction, I held on more firmly, making sure she was still comfortable and enjoying the moment. We locked eyes in the mirror, and I could see how much she was enjoying the new sensations. "You like this, don't you?" I asked playfully. "Yes," she cried, completely caught up in the moment. I stayed attentive to her reactions, making sure everything remained enjoyable for both of us. Eventually, we reached a calm conclusion, both of us feeling satisfied and relaxed. We lay there quietly for a few minutes, catching our breath. "That was incredible," she said, smiling. "Now I see why they call it doggy style. It's got a different kind of energy." "No one has ever treated me like that before," she said, sounding surprised. I laughed and jokingly tipped my imaginary hat. Happy to help. We both got dressed, exchanged goodbyes until next week, knowing we'd still see each other at soccer practice the next day. These busy schedules were starting to wear me out. Soccer Moms Week 3. On Monday, Michelle texted me, letting me know that she had her period and was feeling a bit uncomfortable. While she normally didn't mind, it was heavier this time, and she'd prefer to skip any intimate plans unless I insisted. She suggested, I can come over just to hang out or we can do something simple. I told her, come over and we'll just enjoy the day and see how things go. She arrived and we exchanged a quick hug and a small kiss. I made us some coffee and we sat chatting about the weekend games and our usual activities, sharing a few laughs along the way. After about 45 minutes, she excused herself to use the bathroom, and I took the chance to freshen up a bit too. I moved to the living room and settled on the sofa, and soon after she joined me. We were both dressed casually in sweatpants, a sign that today was going to be a relaxed visit. She leaned over and gave me a gentle kiss. We continued talking and laughing as we enjoyed each other's company. The mood was light, and we spent the rest of the time enjoying the peaceful atmosphere between us. As we sat there, I noticed how comfortable everything felt, even without any expectations. It was nice to just relax and spend time together. Eventually, she smiled and joked, "You're always ready for anything, huh?" I laughed and said, "Only when you're around." She blushed at the compliment, clearly enjoying the ease and playfulness of the moment. We spent the rest of the visit simply talking and laughing, sharing stories and catching up on life. The relaxed mood carried through until it was time for her to leave, and we both agreed that it was nice to just hang out without any pressure. She was taking her time, moving slowly and without rush. There was no pressure, and we were both enjoying the relaxed atmosphere. As we continued talking, I could tell she was comfortable. We shared a few laughs, and the mood stayed light. She suddenly paused, smiling knowingly as if she could sense my anticipation. "Not yet," she teased with a laugh. We chatted some more, the conversation turning playful and relaxed. Michelle had a knack for keeping things fun while maintaining the connection between us. "So," she asked curiously, "when you're with someone, do you have a preference for how things go, or do you just go with the flow?" I smiled, enjoying the lighthearted nature of the conversation. "It depends," I replied. "It's really about what feels right in the moment, and I think that's true for most people." She laughed again, giving me a playful nudge. "Careful, you're giving me a lot of control here." We both laughed, continuing to talk about preferences and experiences, but always keeping things fun and casual. Michelle had a way of asking questions that kept the conversation flowing, and I enjoyed her curiosity. "Ever tried something different?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Or do you usually keep things simple?" I chuckled. "I think it's all about balance. Trying new things can be fun, but it's important that both people are comfortable with it." The conversation drifted into playful banter, and it became clear that Michelle was enjoying exploring new topics in a safe and relaxed way. We shared stories, laughed, and kept things light. As we continued talking, I felt like Michelle was truly enjoying herself. The connection between us was easy, natural, and fun. We laughed about the conversation, exchanging smiles as the lighthearted atmosphere continued. At one point, she playfully teased me by pausing again just when things seemed to be getting intense. "What are you doing?" I asked, laughing. "Just keeping you on your toes," she said with a wink. I couldn't help but laugh at her playful approach. We enjoyed the rest of the afternoon like that, relaxed, teasing, and comfortable in each other's company. I was getting impatient, but she resumed with focus, knowing I was close to the edge. We locked eyes, and I could feel the tension building. She looked up at me and asked, "Do you want this to continue?" I nodded in agreement, and she continued, putting extra effort into making sure everything felt right. As things reached their peak, I could tell she was fully into the moment. When it was over, I felt a sense of release and calm wash over us. Afterward, she smiled and said, "That was incredible." I smiled back, feeling the connection we had shared. I handed her a towel to clean up, and we both laughed about how intense the moment had been. It was a relaxed and comfortable exchange with no pressure or expectations. As she got ready to leave, she glanced back with a playful smile. "Same time next week?" she asked before heading out the door. It's funny how life works. On Thursday, I received a similar message from Rachel, letting me know that she wasn't feeling her best, but she still wanted to see me. It seemed like she and Michelle had their schedules aligned, and Rachel didn't want to cancel. Rachel had grown up with a silver spoon, always treated like a princess. While Michelle and I were more comfortable with each other, and she was open to my playful teasing, I wasn't as sure how Rachel would respond to that kind of dynamic. With Michelle, there was an ease and familiarity, so we both felt comfortable pushing boundaries. As Rachel arrived, I decided to take a gentle approach and focus on spending time together in a more relaxed, fun way. We had built a good connection over time, and I didn't want to risk anything by being too forward. Instead, I planned to see how the day unfolded, focusing on enjoying each other's company and making her feel at ease. The problem was, I wasn't entirely sure how she'd react. I had a feeling that this might be new territory for her, being bossed around or treated in a different way. But there was a bit of risk. So far, she had gone along with my suggestions about what we should do, and she didn't seem to mind when I teased her last week. But I hadn't been forceful with her yet, and I wasn't sure how she'd respond. She arrived about 5 minutes late, which I decided to use as part of the moment. "You're late," I said, looking at my watch. "And I don't have much time." "Sorry," she replied, walking up to me. Without saying another word, she surprised me by taking control of the situation. Suddenly, she took charge in a way I didn't expect, flipping the dynamic completely. It was clear she had decided to take the lead today, and I found myself just going along with it. She looked up at me with determination. "You're not done until I say so," she said, resuming her actions. I was taken aback but didn't argue. We shared a moment that felt different from our usual dynamic, and she was fully in control this time, making her intentions clear. It was a shift in energy that left me a bit stunned, but also curious about her confidence. As we continued, I remembered that she had enjoyed playful teasing before, so I decided to keep things lighthearted and followed her lead. She didn't slow down, making it clear she was fully committed. When everything came to an end, I was left feeling lightheaded, and we both flopped down onto the sofa, out of breath but laughing at the shift in energy between us. I looked over at her, still catching my breath. "What brought that on?" I asked, curious. "Well," she started, "I was looking forward to seeing you, but then my period came and I didn't want to cancel. So I figured, why not take the lead today and see how it goes?" I smiled and said, "That was definitely different than I expected, but I'm not complaining." She laughed and shrugged. "Call it whatever you want. I had fun, and that's what matters." We continued talking, enjoying the easy conversation and reflecting on how the day had unfolded in such a surprising way. I was curious about her experiences and how she became so skilled in what I had just experienced, especially since she mentioned her husband had never been interested in oral. She eventually shared an interesting story. Her first serious boyfriend was when she turned 18. They tried something new, but it didn't go as planned. He became embarrassed afterward and, to her surprise, broke up with her because of it. Her next boyfriend was the one she lost her virginity to. He wanted more from their relationship, but she hesitated, worried about repeating her past experience. Ironically, he ended things because she wouldn't go along with his expectations. As a sophomore in college, she dated someone else for about a year. She thought things were fine, but she later found out he was comparing her with other girls behind her back, keeping notes on their time together. That discovery left her feeling betrayed. Angry, she decided to go out with friends and focus on having fun, meeting new people, and moving on from that experience. Eventually, she met her now husband, Ed, who treated her well. They never brought up the topic of oral again, which was fine with her as she was ready to leave those past experiences behind. Soon after, she became pregnant, and life moved forward. We had plenty of time that day, so I made us some breakfast, and we sat and chatted as usual. Everything seemed to be working out great with both Michelle and Rachel. Our friendships were still intact, and nothing felt awkward in public or private. Although I wondered what it would be like to be in a real relationship with either of them, I quickly pushed that thought away and enjoyed the present. After breakfast, we returned to the living room to watch a royal wedding on TV. I was distracted, checking emails on my phone while Rachel rested her head on my shoulder. The wedding must have sparked something in her, and soon she was playfully reaching for my hand. We spent the rest of the time enjoying each other's company, the mood relaxed and comfortable. It was nice to have these moments where things felt simple and we could just enjoy being together without any expectations. She was gentle and took her time, lightly kissing me, making sure to focus on the moment and the connection between us. She seemed to enjoy watching my reactions, appreciating how she made me feel. Remembering my conversation with Michelle from a few days earlier, I decided to ask Rachel something. Did your past boyfriends ever try to do something that made you uncomfortable? I asked, curious about her experiences. She thought for a moment before replying, One tried to push boundaries, but I made it clear that wasn't okay. It's kind of funny to look back now and think about where I drew the line back then. Rachel gave me a thoughtful look. Why do you ask? She wondered aloud. I laughed, lightening the mood. Don't worry, I said playfully. I'm not trying anything crazy here. She smiled. Good, she said with a wink. But you know, I'm open to trying new things if it feels right. We both shared a laugh, and then she said, Stand up. Let's change things up. I want to watch you. I stood up, and she watched closely, her curiosity evident. We exchanged glances as the room filled with quiet energy, both of us enjoying the calm and the moment between us. After a while, I could feel things building up inside. I'm almost there, I warned. Rachel, still watching intently, nodded and leaned forward a little. I'm with you, she said softly, her voice full of excitement. The moment passed, and we both sat back, catching our breath, the room filled with a sense of shared understanding and ease. I reached out and gently brushed her hair from her face, giving her a smile. That was something, she said, wiping her face with a nearby cloth, laughing lightly. I didn't expect it to feel quite like that. I chuckled and responded, There's always something new to discover. With a grin, she replied, Well, I'm definitely learning a lot from you. Who knew these little moments could be so fun? We both laughed, feeling light and comfortable with each other as the conversation drifted back to everyday things, knowing we had shared something unique. I'm happy to try that again sometime if you'd like, but to be honest, I'd rather keep it simple and just enjoy our time together. Sounds good, I replied. I just wanted to see you in a different way. Then she surprised me with a question. Did you have the same experience with Michelle? I felt a sudden worry. Had I really heard that right? Oh no, I thought to myself. What do you mean? I asked. I could feel my heart racing. I wasn't sure what she knew, so I tried my best to stay calm and not say too much. I mean, she clarified, did you have a similar moment with Michelle as you did with me? It's a straightforward question. I was caught off guard. Are you saying I'm involved with Michelle? That's exactly what I'm suggesting. I didn't know how to respond. I felt trapped, but then she laughed and said, All right, I'll stop putting you on the spot. We never talked about it, and it never crossed my mind that you might be seeing other women. You're single and I'm married, so I didn't really think about it. Anyway, I met up with Michelle on Wednesday after soccer practice for a drink. She seemed really cheerful, so I asked her what was making her so happy. Before she could answer, I exclaimed, Oh my God! Rachel continued. Michelle said, I have something to share, but you have to promise to keep it secret. I assured her that I wouldn't tell anyone. Then she opened up, saying, I've been seeing someone. I feel a little guilty about it, but it's been wonderful. You'll never guess who it is. For some reason, I had a feeling it was you. I just said your name without even asking. And her reaction made me laugh. She was like, Is it really that obvious? Then she got nervous and wondered if others could tell. I replied, No, it's not obvious. I only guessed because I'm seeing you too. Her expression changed for a moment, almost like she was shocked. But then she smiled and said, I told him to be careful and make sure his partner is good for him, so I guess I'm cool with it. Let's toast to you. I couldn't believe my ears. The two women I was close to had just discovered each other, and here I was, joking with one of them, eventually, comma. I said, Rachel, I'm sorry. My connection with Michelle started just before we met. I didn't think we needed to discuss seeing other people. I thought if we didn't talk about it, it would be fine. Hey, she said, it's all good. If it bothered me, would I have come over today? It's fine, I'm okay with it, and so is Michelle. We decided not to talk about the details of our time together. We didn't want anyone to feel jealous or competitive, so there would be no comparisons. When I mentioned something about Michelle, I didn't really know what had happened between them, but I began to have an idea. I chuckled a bit, mostly feeling relieved. I said, "Just so you know, the idea was Michelle's for one situation, and in your case, it was my idea. This way you can see I'm not doing the same thing with both of you. With each of you, I just go with the flow, letting you guide things since I want to help meet your needs." She stood up and kissed me. "It's all good. We've talked about it, and we both agree it can work as long as it stays a secret, or until you start seeing someone steadily." As she walked away, I joked, "Yeah, now we can make it a trio." She glanced back at me with a playful smile, and I felt curious about what was in store for Tuesday. Soccer moms. Week 4, ***. Saturday's soccer games felt different for me. It was the first time I saw Michelle and Rachel together since we all knew what was happening, and we had to act normal to avoid drawing attention. I didn't want to ignore them, but I also didn't want to be too close. So I approached them separately when they were apart. First, I went to Michelle, who was talking with another parent, and joined in their conversation about the game. Michelle kept looking at me, and I knew that if I met her gaze, I'd start laughing. After a bit, I found Rachel with a group and joined their chat as well. A little later, Michelle came over to join us. During the conversation, Rachel said, "You have something on your face," pretending to wipe it off, which made them both laugh. Once the second half of the game began, the others focused on the match, leaving just me, Michelle, and Rachel together. Michelle asked, "Are we waiting for anyone else?" Rachel replied, "Could he handle more?" I checked my phone and said, "Well, I'm free on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays." Michelle let out a small yelp and playfully hit my arm, which caught the attention of a few other parents, but they thought nothing of it since we were all just friendly. As the game continued, I turned back to the field and said, "See you Tuesday." And Friday. They both laughed again and we went our separate ways. I thought I wouldn't see anyone until Michelle on Tuesday, but on Saturday night, I was invited to a backyard gathering at another dad's house from soccer. I knew Michelle and Rachel would be there, along with their husbands, Tom, Michelle's husband, who is a doctor, and Eric, Rachel's husband, who works in government. I usually got along fine with Tom, though I didn't enjoy it when he and Michelle would argue openly. Eric, on the other hand, often acted like he knew everything, especially when he was drinking. There were about 5 couples there, plus me, the single guy. The other wives asked me lots of questions about my dating life, trying to find me someone to meet. It felt pretty dull. Michelle and Rachel were also eager to engage and keep things upbeat. They asked things like, "Aren't you dating anyone? A good-looking guy like you must have plenty of options. Come on, share with us. You must be doing something exciting." Everyone laughed together. Then Eric, a bit too tipsy, said, "He's probably too old for that now." He was trying to be funny, but it didn't land well. I noticed Rachel stiffen, worried about how I might respond. I kept my cool, not wanting to spoil the fun. Tom joined in as well, joking, "Yeah, people who work with numbers tend to lose their spark early on." They seemed a bit envious of the attention I was getting, so I didn't mind their remarks. The other guys there, who were my friends, rolled their eyes at their jokes. One friend defended me, saying, "My buddy here is doing just fine. He knows how to keep busy while you two are just teasing him." I glanced over at Michelle, who laughed at the comment. She knew I'd get her back later for how her husband was acting. As people started to leave, I got up too, giving hugs to the ladies and handshakes to the men. While saying goodbye to Michelle, Tom shook my hand and joked, "Looks like you took the spotlight tonight." "It's all good," I replied. "Saturday nights are for the amateurs anyway. The best company is often found during the week." Michelle laughed again, and Tom shot her a look. On Tuesday, Michelle arrived earlier than usual. I had just finished my workout and was still in the shower, unaware she had come in. She startled me when she suddenly opened the shower door and peeked inside. "No one else in here with you, I hope?" she teased. This was our first real chance to talk privately since she learned about Rachel, so I knew we'd need to address it. "Nope," I replied. "Just me. Feel free to join. Water's warm." Before I could say anything else, she stepped in, already ready, and embraced me, pulling me into a passionate kiss. "You have no idea how much I wanted to do this at the game on Saturday," she said with a smile. "It was all I could think about that night. I'm sorry about how Tom acted. I know it must have been frustrating." I shook my head. "Don't worry about it," I said. "People like him don't bother me." She grabbed the soap and started washing me playfully. Then she confided, Tom tried to make up with me on Saturday night. I felt a slight twinge of jealousy, though I knew I shouldn't. After all, she was married. Michelle sensed it. "It's okay," she said softly. "I didn't let him. We ended up arguing instead." I hesitated for a moment and then said, "Listen, this is meant to be fun, not something that causes problems. Don't feel like you need to deny him because of me. It's best to avoid unnecessary drama." She kissed me in response, and we both let the conversation fade as she rinsed herself under the water. The tension from earlier melted away as we simply enjoyed each other's company, the moment feeling relaxed and natural. We traded places under the water and she leaned in close, making the most of our time together. We both stayed in the moment, without any expectations, just sharing a quiet connection. Afterward, we laughed and talked some more, as we had always done, knowing that no matter what, we could trust each other to keep things light and easy. Michelle finally gave in and whispered, "Yes." We continued in the warm shower, with the water flowing over us as we stayed close. After a while, I adjusted the shower head so it rinsed her off, and we shared a quiet, meaningful moment. Michelle stood, and we kissed softly, with her whispering in my ear, "You can trust me, and I trust you." I turned off the water, and we stepped out of the shower. I handed her a soft robe and said, "Get comfortable on the bed," offering her the remote. "I'll grab us some coffee." A few minutes later, I returned with 2 cups of coffee. Michelle was sitting in my bed, her hair wrapped in a towel, wearing the robe I gave her. She looked relaxed and peaceful. "This bed is so comfortable," she said with a smile. "I bet you sleep really well in here." I nodded, climbing into the bed beside her. "Yeah, it's nice, though sometimes it can feel a bit lonely." She gave me a soft smile and leaned over to kiss my cheek. We sat quietly for a while, sipping our coffee and enjoying the calmness of the moment. After some time, I reached over and gently placed my hand on her leg. I slowly moved my hand up and down her thigh, making sure she was comfortable and relaxed. Each time, she responded by opening up a bit more, showing how at ease she felt. I looked over at her, noticing her peaceful expression. I continued to gently touch her, creating a soft connection between us. We shared this quiet moment, both enjoying the closeness. I adjusted the blanket and her robe, making sure she felt cozy. My hand traced lightly across her skin, from her belly up to her shoulders, creating a comforting rhythm. She responded with soft movements, clearly feeling the warmth and care. Eventually, I moved closer and kissed her, then slowly made my way down, continuing to show affection with gentle touches. We remained in the peaceful atmosphere, enjoying the connection we had built together. I playfully teased her, lightly touching her and making her squirm, which only made me smile more as I enjoyed our connection. Every small movement and reaction from her made the moment more meaningful. As I moved lower, Michelle opened her legs, clearly trusting me and feeling comfortable. I gently kissed her thighs, lightly tracing my fingers over her skin. She was clearly enjoying the closeness, and I continued to take my time, creating a warm and relaxed atmosphere. She quietly asked me to stop teasing and continue, showing how much she was enjoying our shared time. I listened and continued to make her feel cared for and appreciated. After a while, I gently leaned in closer, making sure she felt comfortable the entire time. We both stayed connected in that moment, completely relaxed and enjoying the trust we had built. As things calmed down, I moved back up to look into her eyes, and she smiled softly at me, clearly happy. I knew this was the right time, so I leaned in to kiss her, and we both enjoyed the quiet intimacy we had shared. When we were ready, I continued to make sure she was comfortable, always moving slowly and gently. Our connection felt strong, and we both appreciated the quiet trust between us. It had been a while since we were this close, and we were both fully in the moment, enjoying every second of it. I smiled down at her, and she whispered that she had never felt this good, which made me even more aware of how special this moment was for both of us. We continued, finding a rhythm that worked for us, and I made sure she felt completely relaxed and at ease. After a while, I sat back to take a break, enjoying the view of her peaceful expression. She smiled at me as I lightly touched her legs, enjoying the quiet closeness. We both felt completely comfortable, without any rush or pressure. We shared a few more moments together before I suggested she turn over, and she smiled, understanding exactly what I meant. Trusting me completely, she adjusted, and we continued enjoying our time together. I moved lower, focusing on making Michelle feel relaxed and cared for. I kept things gentle and slow, making sure she was comfortable. Her body responded naturally, and I continued to move with care, paying attention to her reactions. We found a rhythm that worked for both of us, enjoying the moment without any rush. The trust between us was clear, and it made everything feel more meaningful. At one point, she turned her head back and gave me a playful comment, making us both laugh. Michelle had a way of keeping things light, even in more intimate moments, and I appreciated that about her. We continued for a while longer, moving slowly and making sure everything felt right. Michelle suggested changing positions, and we did so smoothly, always keeping that easy flow between us. As we shifted, she asked me to continue, and I made sure to take it slow, making sure she was comfortable the whole time. The connection between us remained strong, and we stayed in tune with each other. We found a comfortable position, and I gently guided her, making sure she was relaxed and at ease. We both enjoyed the closeness of the moment, and I could see how much she trusted me. We stayed like that for a while, just enjoying the shared experience, and when she looked back at me with a smile, I knew we were both in a good place. I noticed Michelle's hand move beneath her as she focused on herself, clearly caught up in the moment. Afterward, she calmed down, taking a deep breath to recover. I slowed things down for a second, giving her time to relax, but soon she was back on all fours. I gently held her hair, guiding her to look back at me. "Look at me," I said, and she turned her head, her expression filled with intensity. "Did you like what happened before?" I asked, keeping the tone light and playful. She nodded slightly, biting her lip. "And you're enjoying this, aren't you?" I continued, smiling as I watched her expression. She nodded again, her smile showing how much she was in the moment. I could tell we were both nearing the end, and soon we both found ourselves at that point, feeling the sense of release and contentment. We were both quiet for a moment, catching our breath and soaking in the calmness of the moment. Afterward, I reached for a towel nearby and helped clean up quickly. Michelle stayed on her stomach for a bit, looking tired and peaceful. She seemed lost in thought, and after a few moments she lifted her head and looked over at me. "You're amazing," she said quietly. I smiled and replied, "It's all about the connection between us." Without saying much more, we both began to get dressed. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, though there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. And then, she was gone. The rest of the week passed without any word from Michelle. I couldn't help but wonder how things were going for her, but I figured I'd give her space. On Wednesday evening, I saw Rachel at soccer practice. She looked radiant, and I felt a sense of excitement about seeing her in a couple of days. When Friday morning arrived, Rachel showed up as expected. We spent some time chatting in the kitchen, enjoying each other's company, but she could sense that something was off. As we made our way to the bedroom and she started to get ready, she stopped and asked, "Are you okay?" I looked at her and said honestly, "I'm in a bit of a tricky situation. This was supposed to be casual, but I've started to develop feelings. For you and for Michelle." She paused to think for a moment, then replied, "I think Michelle and I both feel the same way. She hasn't been herself this week, and when I brought this up the other night, she didn't want to talk about it." Tuesday morning brought a mix of emotions for Rachel. She confessed, "I couldn't help but feel a bit upset knowing what was happening here." She knelt in front of me, still in her undergarments, taking my hands in hers, and spoke openly. "I think Michelle and I both care about you a lot. In different circumstances, either of us could have a real relationship with you. But you need to understand, we're both in difficult situations. I haven't worked in years, and with young kids, leaving Eric would be a mess right now. Michelle, well, she doesn't have much to fall back on, and her kids are even younger. If one of us left our husbands, imagine the impact on our children and the gossip if we made our relationship public." Her points were valid. Of course, I had thought of these things before. I knew I had a choice, either end things with one or both of them, or continue but try to keep emotions out of it. The connection we shared was strong, and I wasn't ready to walk away. Rachel, still thoughtful, removed her remaining clothes and reached for me, making the choice easier in the moment. We shared a quiet, intimate time, losing ourselves in the closeness and comfort we found in one another. Later, as we sat together, Rachel looked at me. "I love how you make me feel free to be myself," she said softly. "You've helped me discover things about myself I didn't know." I smiled at her words, appreciating the honesty we had built together. There was something special between us, even if it couldn't be something more, and I knew we were both grateful for the time we had. "I'm sensing you're getting close." As the moment passed, Rachel leaned back against me. I gently touched her as she turned her head, and we shared a deep kiss until our closeness faded. Since Rachel hadn't reached her peak, she stood up and sat at the edge of the bed. She adjusted herself while we watched the result of our intimacy. "Help me out," I said. I took a bit of what we shared and offered it to her, and she responded softly. "I'm going to feel amazing soon," she said, her voice filled with excitement. I followed up with another gesture, and she seemed overwhelmed with joy. After a bit, Rachel settled down, taking in deep breaths and laughing softly. "Wow," she said, catching her breath. "You make me feel so different. I can't believe I'm behaving this way." As we got dressed, we sat on the bed side by side, and she took my hands. "Don't let this end. We want you in our lives. I know you're often alone, so go out and find someone special. If you do, let us know and we'll step back. But for now, let's enjoy what we have together." I accepted my situation, sharing time with two wonderful women twice a week. No strings attached, no costs, and all the free time I wanted without the challenges of a relationship. I figured I could handle it. Michelle hadn't said much all week, but later on Friday, after Rachel left, she texted me saying she couldn't wait until Tuesday. She asked if we could meet on Saturday. Knowing my kids were with their mom that weekend, I understood the risks of meeting up then. She suggested that after our game on Saturday morning, we could go for a hike. The fall is beautiful where we live, and there are great hiking spots nearby. I agreed, and we picked a meeting spot about 20 minutes away. Then she got into my car, and we drove another half hour to a lovely hiking area. It was a perfect day, and we wore shorts and t-shirts, with sweatshirts packed just in case it got chilly. The trail we chose was of medium difficulty. The easy path was too simple and crowded, while the hardest one was often filled with serious hikers. The medium trail always felt more private. The hike to the top of the mountain usually took about an hour, and it took 45 minutes to come down. We started walking at a good speed, but soon slowed down to save our energy. About 20 minutes in, we heard a creek flowing down the mountain nearby. We made our way through some bushes to find it. The stream was about 3 feet wide and moving nicely, with a few flat rocks nearby. We decided to take a break, have a sip of water, and enjoy the lovely view in silence. Then I said, "You know, if something were to happen up here, if one of us got hurt or lost, we would have a tough time explaining why we are up here, so far from home on this quiet trail." She didn't say anything at first, and a minute went by. Eventually, she set her water down, got up, walked over to me and kissed me, saying, "Let's not worry about it." Michelle sat down next to me and looked around to see if anyone else was nearby. Feeling safe, she smiled and started getting comfortable with me. She leaned closer, and we shared a quiet moment. Michelle pulled back a bit and looked into my eyes. "You know, I really enjoy our time together," she said. She then took my hands and looked serious. "I like being with you and all the fun we have, but I worry about what it means. I've seen my parents and siblings struggle with relationships, and I'm not in a place for anything serious right now. I just want us to enjoy this moment for what it is, without complicating it." I listened and understood where she was coming from. "That makes sense," I replied. "I agree. Let's just enjoy our time together." We shared a warm smile before getting ready to continue our hike. As we walked towards the summit, it was challenging, and we didn't talk much, saving our breath. But on the way back down, we could relax and chat more easily. We talked about our feelings and the fun we had, knowing that the important thing was to enjoy our adventure. We completed our hike, stopped at a local place for some drinks, and watched a football game, then drove back to our meeting spot. I assisted her into her car, and just before she closed the door, she said, "Oh, by the way, Rachel and I chatted last night. She mentioned that you told her you wanted to have a special time together. Well, if you really want it, maybe it will happen." "Wow," I thought as Michelle laughed, closed her door, and drove off. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to Infidelity Plus to stay updated with more captivating tales of infidelity and payback. Turn on notifications so you're the first to see our latest content.